Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our MITRE Payroll, Run Payroll in Minutes, Not Hours webinar. My name is Sullivan Sanders, a marketing coordinator here at Aktion Associates. Just some quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded, so you are muted, and we will share the link to the recording shortly after the webinar. During the presentation, please utilize the Q&A feature to ask questions if needed, and we will answer them during the Q&A session at the end if we have some time. If you experience any technical issues during the webinar, you may also use the Q&A feature and we will try to assist you. And please notice that we have also provided a post-webinar survey, which is already available in your webinar console. We ask that you please fill that out as your feedback is important to us. With all that being said, let me introduce today's presenters. We're joined by John Laufer and Sarah Marks. John is an early go-to-market team member over at MITRE, and Sarah is currently the partnerships lead. Without further ado, I'll hand it on over to you, John, if you'd like to expand and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate it, Sullivan, and great to be connected with everyone today. So John Laufer, as Sullivan mentioned, one of the early go-to-market members of the MITRE team, and also responsible for supporting Aktion Associates, their consultants in the go-to-market effort with our payroll solution. So working very closely with the Aktion team, involved in the local Austin chapter of CFMA and ABC, and really focused on taking folks through the evaluation process, making sure MITRE is a good fit for folks as they're evaluating, either staying on their server-based solution or transitioning to a cloud-based ERP. And Sarah, I think I'll kick it over to you to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Marks. I'm the partnerships lead here at MITRE. I've been in construction technology for about 9 years now, and have really focused mostly in working with Sage partners and that ecosystem. So super excited to be here and talk to you guys about MITRE and how we can help work with your Sage solutions. And with that, we can get started. So a quick overview of what we're going to go through today. We'll really just talk about a quick overview of MITRE, what differentiates MITRE in the market, go through a brief demonstration, and as Sullivan said, we will have Q&A at the end. That being said, feel free to drop any questions throughout the demonstration or the presentation in the Q&A chat box, and we will try to get to them throughout our time together as well. All right. To jump right in for an overview of MITRE, MITRE's mission is to build great teams and make more money. How that translates is in 2021, our founders got together and kind of did a survey of the construction companies that they were working with throughout various platforms, and really found a need for a payroll solution that fit the construction industry. There were several payroll solutions in the market, but none that really understood the complications that payroll had specifically. And so they set out to build a construction-specific payroll platform. Since then, they have grown into much more than a payroll solution. So now MITRE is a full-service human capital management solution, building onto human resources, benefits management, field productivity, and also expense management. I like to mention this because this is all organically grown through our customer requests. Our customers said, hey, you solve payroll for construction, so what else can you help me solve? Everything around people and projects is really kind of what MITRE is looking to solve, and that's kind of what we've done. And really, that success comes down to kind of 4 pillars that I want to talk about. The first really is our construction focus, as I mentioned. MITRE only works with construction. That's our sole focus, because like I mentioned, many of you probably have worked with other solutions that just don't understand the just the minute details that construction needs to be able to pull over their work breakdown structure, manage multiple different pay rates, and really handle that on a day-to-day basis. The next piece is the compliance. Obviously, within construction, it gets a little bit complicated, to say the least, right? When you start talking about unions and multi-state taxes and different sort of certified payroll reporting, it can be complicated. And if those things aren't filed correctly, the right way, There are huge fines and even jail time in very serious cases. And so filing those accurately is imperative for every company. And so MITRE really makes sure that we handle that the right way. The third piece is a modern API, which we'll talk about in just a little bit here. But really making sure that we're connecting to your ERP system, and not just your ERP, but also your FSM solution, whether that be Procore or HCSS or whatever you're using in the field, to really make it feel like a fully connected ecosystem. We are in the modern days where if you are not first, you're last, and that absolutely applies to your software solutions. And the last piece is support, right? As I mentioned, we've built this software based off of what our customers have asked us for. And we absolutely believe that providing our customers with first-in-class support equals customers for life. I know that Aktion believes that as well. And the only way that we can continue to have customers renew year after year is if we are giving you guys best-in-class service. I won't go over this slide too much, but I really just want to show the kind of breadth, or the depth as well as the breadth of what our platform offers. I mentioned this briefly, but we go way beyond payroll now, even though that is really what our bread and butter is and where we started. And John will get into this with the demo as well, but really like to show kind of some of our highlights from learning management in our HR solution to full 401k benefit solution, to even going down to expense management, being able to link your per diems, et cetera, all on one platform really enables our clients to move faster and, like we said, make more money and be able to solutionize a lot quicker for their teams. Now, I know most of you on this call are either coming from 100-300 or some of you are moving straight into Intacct, but really want to talk about how MITRE can be the bridge for your software solutions. Now, if you're moving from 100-300, the good news is that MITRE connects to 100-300 just like it does with Intacct. Now, with Intacct, it's a modern API, so we can connect directly there. But with 100-300, we also have the ability to integrate that way. And so if you ever do decide that you're going to move to Intacct, it is a seamless connection. We can unhook you and rehook you. There's not a re-implementation fee. It's not like you're having to move to a different software. So if you have a very urgent need to solve your payroll, you can solve that with MITRE now, start solutioning for some of those issues, and then maybe solve it for Intacct later. Or if you're ready to do the whole thing, it's very simple to do that as well. But we've had several clients use MITRE as kind of a stepping stone to, let's solve this piece of the problem now, and then we can be set up for Intacct in the future. So definitely want to make sure that we're highlighting that. And I will not go over each of these. Yes, it does integrate with Sage 300 CRE. We just got that question. I won't go over each of these roadmaps, but this is Sage 100 Contractor, just to be clear. This is what this looks like. I can definitely get you each of these roadmaps if you're curious of what these look like. But this is Sage 100 Contractor. This is the Sage 300 CRE map. And then this is the Sage Intacct map. So obviously Sage Intacct is the most complete as far as these maps go, because this is the one that's API connected. So we're able to push and pull data the most readily. However, we do connect to, again, Sage 100 Contractor, Sage 300 CRE, and Sage Intacct. And again, we can share this data with you after the fact. If you're curious, please reach out. All right, and then I'm going to pass it over to John to really talk about how MITRE differentiates ourselves in the marketplace.
Yeah. So when we think about MITRE being a construction-specific human capital management platform, a lot of buzzwords in there, like really just a fancy way of saying we do HR and payroll. We just only work with general contractors, subcontractors throughout the U.S. A big chunk of that, like Sarah said, handling the nuances of construction payroll. So that's where we started for all of our clients. This is advanced job costing, breaking out not just the employee earnings, but the fully burdened labor costs at whatever dimensions we're using in our ERP. So earnings, taxes, benefits, workers' comp, liability at the project, cost code, cost type, department, location, class, et cetera level, because we pull down that work breakdown structure from your ERP as timesheets are submitted, payrolls processed, we're then able to break out those journal entries in the way your team needs it to sync back to the ERP. So this is a core function of MITRE. Every single one of our customers are hyper-focused on getting that level of detail back to their ERP while still having an HRIS payroll solution that they can rely on to streamline hiring, onboarding, offloading the taxes, generating their compliance reports, like Sarah mentioned. So that next bullet point there, right? Certified payroll requirements. Feels like they're coming out with a new system for us to upload to every week, or states are rolling out their own versions of certified payrolls. So we work with the LCP trackers, the EMARs, Elations, eComplies of the world, as well as all state and federal WH-347 reports. So very easy process to generate those in the system, which we can walk through in the demo portion. Time and accounting integrations, we won't beat this one to death, but obviously, with on the service side or the project management side, Procore's HCSS, Service Titan build-ups of the worlds, we integrate with all of those to ingest the timesheets, or most folks will just do construction time tracking through MITRE. So we can pull that in, process the payroll, and then sync back to your accounting system of choice, whether that is Sage 100, 300, or Sage Intact. We support clients on all three. Union rates and reciprocity, this probably we should have another bullet point there with prevailing wage, right? So whether we're a multi-union contractor working across different states, running into reciprocity rules with, where do we route our fringes when somebody from a home local works in an away local, or we're non-union, but we're just juggling a ton of different prevailing wage rates across our projects, really sort of our bread and butter. And then the last point I'll hit on this slide is those job-based payroll taxes, right? So we are a full payroll processor. So we are handling, after you click run payroll in MITRE and you've prepped it, we pull out the amount for taxes and remit those to the proper agencies. We take care of, your child support garnishments. We do quarterly annual tax filings as well as W-2s at the end of the year. So a big chunk of that is going to be job-based payroll taxes, right? If we're working across multiple states, or if we're in a state like Aktion's, based in Ohio, right? We have locality taxes. So depending on where the project is within that state, there's different taxes that need to be withheld on those earnings. So the ability to, withhold the correct local, state, and federal taxes based on the job's address is a key feature of MITRE, and one of the big differentiators between a traditional payroll system that just doesn't typically handle some of the nuances of construction very well. If we want to jump to the next slide there, and as Sarah mentioned, that was our bread and butter, right? We started with construction time tracking and payroll, but since then have added a ton of value just through customer requests, right? Everybody, with the payroll system, how do we get folks hired and onboarded quickly, set up for payroll out in the field, tracking time so we can, get them on the project and ultimately get going with our work. So added a full HRIS module, as Sarah flashed the slides before. This is, a learning management system, applicant tracking, digital onboarding, PTO management, document storage, certification tracking. So really robust offering on the HRIS side. Kind of goes hand in hand with the benefits management piece. We rolled that out shortly after the HRIS is, within that employee portal where they go through onboarding, where they get their pay stubs, where they request PTO. We also want them to be able to go through that open enrollment process during the year, so they can select make their carrier selections. We sync those directly back to your carriers, and it just updates in payroll so they're ready to go. Same thing on the 401k side. And the last piece here, outside of field productivity and payroll and compliance, is the expense management piece. So this is one of our core functions at MITRE is just getting the fully burdened labor costs back to your ERP so you can run your job cost reports. With that, we found there's just a ton of folks out in the field who are having this miscellaneous spend across credit cards, reimbursements, et cetera. So, from the mobile app, we can sync in all of your corporate credit card programs, any Visa, MasterCard, or Amex. So as folks swipe those cards, they get a text message to upload a picture of their receipt, snap a picture of their receipt, can allocate that to a project cost code. And then once that's approved in MITRE, we actually sync that back to Sage. So capturing the receipt as well as getting that job cost detail so we can include that with your labor costs. And I see Judy commented below on the displayed in Spanish. Everything in MITRE is available in English and Spanish. So throughout the applicant tracking, as well as the onboarding process, and then throughout their employee life cycle. So as we mentioned, goes far beyond payroll into a full HCM system managing the entire hiring, onboarding, employee life cycle process through expense management. Integrations, obviously one of the core pieces of MITRE is cloud-based solution and being able to work well with your other systems, both on the project management service side for getting those different types of timesheets into the system for payroll processing, but also on the ERP side. Sarah flashed those slides before, and I think we already have a couple questions around Sage 300 and 100. At a high level, absolutely, we work with all three. We have tons of customers across all three. Intact's entirely API-based. That's a cloud-based solution, very easy for us to plug into. The other two, API-based on the way down, meaning projects, cost codes, departments, your work breakdown structure. We still ingest that automatically. There's no double entry or file uploads required. Just on the way back after we process payroll, getting the job costed journal entries, I believe it's a JCD file, to hit your job cost report and your GL in Sage 300 and Sage 100. So very much still a clean and easy process, just slightly less robust than Sage Intacct being a cloud-based system like MITRE. And then our product roadmap. We're growing really, really fast, announcing our newest funding round in May. So we'll have a big rollout and announcement for that. But this is primarily due to we've been listening and servicing our customers very, very well. The only thing that matters to us after we sign a customer up is how quickly we can get them live and successful so that they are a referenceable customer. And, we've done this process repeatedly with the Aktion team, and ultimately listening to those customers, bringing them live have guided us on our product roadmap and allowed us to expand into all the areas that contractors really care about, especially nowadays, which is, hiring, maintaining, upskilling their team, and just making sure they're able to get payroll done without, taking 2 to 3 days out of their week so that their team can focus on more important aspects of the business. I think we're good to jump to next slide, but also saw Nancy dropped a question in the bottom here. We do integrate directly with Employee Navigator. So I know they just acquired Ease, and that's sort of the behemoth in the benefits space. So a lot of folks, their brokers prefer they stay with Employee Navigator. You can absolutely do that as soon as you onboard an employee. We push the employee information to Employee Navigator. They're able to go through open enrollment. Those carrier elections sync back to MITRE for payroll. Awesome. I think this slide really encapsulates a lot of what we see with the current Sage 100 and 300 customer base. Usually when folks come to us, they're fall into one of two buckets. The HRIS, the benefits, the expense management, the way we're capturing time, et cetera. Those are paper-based, Excel-based manual processes. And we're really looking to, hey, where can we drive efficiency across your organization through digitizing some of these? Or they have acquired separate point solutions to manage these processes, which usually leads to slightly clunky integrations with the ERP. The biggest being on the HR side, right? We don't want to use a system to hire and onboard our employees, collect their I-9, their withholding, their bank account information, and then have to go set that up again in our payroll system. We don't want folks to request PTO and manage that in one system and then have to plug it into another. When our team goes through the open enrollment process, we might have hundreds of employees. We don't want to have to go set that up in another system. So there's just a lot of symmetries between the HRIS payroll functions that, being an HCM, we believe belong together in one system. So have had a ton of work either consolidating systems with folks as they look to transition to the cloud, or just helping them gain efficiencies through some of these paper-based or Excel-based processes. Customer wins. Yeah, we have done a ton of work with the Action team here over the last 6 to 9 months specifically. Central ceilings being one of the ones that I actually worked on. This was a super exciting one. Long-time Sage 300 customer. We're running into a lot of different challenges with just their union reporting in Sage 300, and things weren't quite working properly. They use Bamboo HR to try and streamline the onboarding process. They're, again, pulling from their unions, but staffing up. I think in the summers they go from 140 anywhere to 250, so almost doubling in size with the work that pops up from schools in the summer. And it just was a clunky process for them. They were using Procore for time tracking because they had it on the project management side, although it really didn't fit their time tracking needs. They were looking for something that could do the GPS clock in and out capabilities. Ultimately went through a sales evaluation process with us and their Action team, actually transitioned onto MITRE and Sage 300, I believe for about 6 to 8 months before then transitioning onto MITRE and Intact, I think to kick off 2025. So ran us side by side with Sage 300 for about 6 months, and then transitioned to MITRE and Sage Intact. Awesome. And yeah, before we go ahead and jump in, or maybe we have a couple wrap ups on Sarah's end, but as we get ready to jump into the demo here, would love, feel free to drop any questions into the chat. We can try to cover those as we go through the demo. Awesome. Sarah, anything on your end, or should I steal the screen and jump on in here?
I think you can jump into the demo.
Great. Awesome. And Sarah, I will let you guide me on the questions if there's any we feel like we want to get to.
Will do.
Awesome. So this is the main MITRE dashboard. Again, cloud-based solution, so your team will be able to access this from anywhere. I think I saw some questions on the HRS side already popping in. So very, very deep on the HRS side. Typically, we're consolidating like a Bamboo HR or a legacy Arcoro system when folks come to us. Again, everything from the applicant tracking piece where your team can create job board postings. We can actually push these out to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Google Job Boards, which syndicates it across 20 other job boards, the smaller ones, as well as embed this on your company's career page so that folks can go to your career page, apply through there, and have their application flow directly into MITRE. From there, who's assigned the hiring manager, hiring team are able to review those applications, see resume, work history, education, just anything we're capturing in a structured way, as well as their response to any of the screener questions and add notes to the candidate profile. So just a very clean, simple way to facilitate the collection of those applications and push out to job boards. From there, as your team is progressing folks through the hiring process, you can SMS text with the candidate or send emails directly from the candidate profile. As well as, if we decided we wanted to, offer Bodhi here, we can send a canned offer letter. So MITRE has fillable documents built in throughout the hiring, onboarding, and just employee management of it. So if we have standard offer letters that we wanted to pull in, we can bring in those templates. MITRE will pull in that offer letter with any of the fillable fields that you have set up, so we can go ahead and complete Bodhi's offer letter with his job title, his salary, anything else we want to include in here, and then send that out to Bodhi for him to collect any signature on, and we'll pull that back and host that in his candidate profile here. So hiring, huge piece for a lot of our customers. If we're on the union side, maybe we're not using the ATS a ton. Regardless, once we hire that employee, it just pulls them into this onboarding process right here where they'll be set up as a team member now. So Bodhi the candidate becomes Bodhi the team member. If y'all are currently using a system for this, probably a very similar workflow, we allow you to build out custom onboarding checklists for your team, where we can go through here and define, for everybody, we're going to collect all of their personal information, their EEO data for EEO1 reporting. They'll be able to go through that I-9 process completely digital. We do integrate with E-Verify as well. So they'll be able to upload their documents. We'll send them off to E-Verify to have it verified. And then, your team will be notified here. We can also set up who is on the employer side responsible for reviewing that employer portion of the I-9. From there, we'll surface the withholding form, take them through step-by-step questionnaire, and essentially just populates that onto their withholding form. Give them the option to do direct deposit or paper check. We use Plaid on the front end, so it'll actually have them log directly into their bank using a username and password. So no room for error there. If they wanted to, they can elect to do accounting and routing numbers on the back end. And in that case, we will deposit a couple cents within the first 8 hours, I believe. And then withdraw that, basically just making sure, Johnny didn't fat finger his account number when he was setting up his bank account. Other fields, obviously, signable documents, fillable documents, right? Company handbooks, safety guides, drug policies, any docs that we need the employees to review, collect e-signatures on, we can build those in. You'll see here, we don't have this set up for today's demo, but we have a background and drug test partner called Checker. Fully embedded into our software, so you could set that integration up essentially during the hiring process or during the onboarding process. You can set that up to do any background or drug tests through MITRE. So you're able to order those tests directly through our system and get the results back at the candidate or employee level within MITRE. So awesome tool there. It is an additional fee, but if anyone's interested, I think they have the pricing on their website. So really, really helpful tool there to streamline those background drug tests for your team. From there, if there are any forms, these are basically like custom survey or form builders that your team can build into that onboarding process to collect additional information. If there's certifications or licenses that we want to capture during the onboarding process, they can do that. We'll store it with an expiration date. And then just any custom tasks or custom fields that we want to capture. So these are very lightly built out in our demo environment, but a lot of times companies will have a laundry list of just employer tasks that they're going to do from the employer side, as well as different custom fields like you'll see here, t-shirt size. Some folks will use these on the employee profile to track like vehicles issued or things like that, and they can run team member reports on any custom fields that they've captured. I think I saw down there a couple questions. We have, our Coro for HR and benefits. Would we have to transition? You certainly don't. MITRE is a modular-based solution, so you could run with our Coro and use MITRE for payroll. We would never recommend that. Again, kind of going back to that slide with the separate SKUs or separate modules, a lot of breakpoints, and you're going to run into that there, right? If we're doing hiring and onboarding in our Coro, we're going to have to take that payroll information that we've captured during the onboarding process and then set it up in MITRE. Same thing with the open enrollment as that goes through. Now we still have to go set that up in MITRE. So we much prefer folks consolidate systems and just do all of those processes within MITRE. Much more seamless process, and typically we're actually saving folks money when we're consolidating a point solution or two. Other than that, look, performance management, so we can set up different review cycles. We have a full LMS system, which has been really exciting for a lot of our customers here. We partner with a company called Click Safety for the content through here, so your team can actually pre-purchase things like the standard OSHA trainings through that and enroll your team in it. But also very robust tool if you guys wanted to come in and create, company-specific content or courses or trainings for your team to go through. So if MITRE internally, our HR or internal team wanted to come in here and create a guide to job safety, we give you the tools to very easily sort of build out this training, everything from embedded videos to AI Assist, which can actually help your team as they're building this, generate multiple choice questions based off the videos that you've attached, or clean up their writing, making it more professional, more inspirational. So a lot of deep functionality across just like how we're managing performance and, tracking and upskilling our employees here in the HR portal. And this is all from the admin side. I'd say, we'd be happy to do a deep dive with anybody on the call too, from like the employee perspective, what it looks like on their end. Very self-service from the team member portal, where they'll have access to all of their documents, the bank account, pay stubs, be able to go through that open enrollment process, track their certifications and, where they're at in your different courses if you're using things like the LMS or the performance management module. Awesome. Jumping here into payroll, I think this is probably the crux of why most folks join the call. Is just construction payroll is hard, and we're either managing it in our legacy ERP and handling the payroll taxes and all of that in-house, or we've outsourced it, but we're having to run payroll once in Paychex to cut the checks and once in Sage 300 to get our labor costs, or we're just doing manual journal entries to do the job costing. So it's a big pain point that we see across a lot of the folks that we meet with currently. I'd say within MITRE, the two big pieces for y'all are going to be the pay rate groups, which probably very familiar for most of you guys working out of Sage 100 and Sage 300. These, for a non-union contractor, these are going to be all of your different prevailing wage rate tables. For a union contractor, these will be all of your locals. So if we click in here to Adams County, these could be a set of Davis-Bacon rates. It could be, we're working up and down the coast of California. It could be your different counties rates. But really, we're just coming in here, setting up our classifications that we need to pay with the base rate, the fringe rate. We can actually apply a specific overtime logic to this pay rate group as well. So if, we're working across multiple states, and they have different overtime logic, we're going to want those pay rate tables to follow suit, as well as different missed lunch or missed break rules. So we can come in here and create how the system should behave when somebody's working on one of these prevailing wage tables and they do miss a break. So, how are those penalty hours applied? And there's a lot of flexibility within that. Just how are we actually building out the overtime logic? And certainly going through this very fast. So I'd say follow up with the action team so we can do kind of a deep dive into your specific situation. But everything we're going through today is customer facing. None of this is back end. It's all very intuitive and easy for your team to use. We certainly set it up with you during the implementation process and spend weeks training on it. But there is nothing behind the scenes going on here. Your team is able to build out all of these tables and these different overtime logic and rules in a very clean and simple way. So those are our prevailing wage rate groups, which again, we can set up the different overtime logic. We can build out our different prevailing wage classifications. On the union side, we can click into one of our locals. Very similar, right? These are just our different union rates where we can have all of our classifications. If we wanted to click in and adjust or update our, union fringes across our different classifications, we can. You can see we have the fringes set up on the back end, their calculation, taxable versus non-taxable, and again, can apply different overtime rules. Most of our union customers, when they get that rate sheet from their unions, they're actually just attach them right here just so they have them for reference. And you can come in here after we configure these, we get the new rates, set effective dates as well. So if we, I think recently it might have just happened for some of our customers where these union rates refresh midweek. And so we want to go ahead and set them up ahead of time so they take effect, in the middle of the week once that transition happens.
Hey, John, question is, can pay rates be set up? Can pay rate groups be set up per job?
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's jump to there in 1 second. I'd say the first thing before we go to the pay rate groups at the project is just reciprocity rules on those unions. Sometimes, and I'm sure folks on this call are running into this where, we have our union rate set up and, Johnny's signatory to local 1, but sometimes he goes and works in local 2. And so how do we pay an employee from local one when they do go and work in local two? We can define, do we pay them the home or the away base rate, or maybe we just use the higher of the two? And then we can actually allocate the fringes out, right? When somebody from local one goes and works in local two, the fringes should be paid to local two, but maybe the dues should still be applied back to local one. So we can set this up so that your union fringe report on the back end will still follow suit based on the rules that we have configured here. So that at a high level is, again, our prevailing wage or union pay rate groups. As your team wins new projects or takes on work in new areas, you would be building out those pay rate tables. But from there, to answer the question in the chat, once we sync down a project from Sage, let's say, you're coming in here and we are going to mark this job as certified payroll. We could say it's Davis Bacon. What's the project number? And then from there, we come in and apply the specific pay rate group to the project. So, some of our larger customers who are union, they have multiple trades on the project. So you can actually set up trades and choose from your locals or your prevailing wage rate tables. But if it's just a very simple, prevailing wage project that we're working in Adams County, we can go ahead and apply Adams County pay rate group to this job. So now we know when we're pulling in timesheets, folks are out there in the field submitting time. Once it goes through that approval process, like, we're looking at the job associated with it, what that employee's classification is, and then paying them the correct rates based off the pay rate group that is assigned to the job. So absolutely, one of the core pillars of MITRE is associating all of this information at the job level, not just the job cost, but the way rates are assigned, so that we're able to essentially automate those, right? Your team is not worried about is pay rate groups on the back end. It's really just, hey, were they on the project for the right time? Did they clock into the right cost code? And then have confidence that MITRE is handling this on the back end. I think one of the key pieces too that we'll see here is during the actual payroll process, a ton of different reviews, even outside of payroll, to just make it really easy for your team to review labor hours, sort of this grid entry view, both from the time tracking process out in the field if you're submitting hours, also to the review process. Some of you HH2 users are probably familiar with these different sort of grid entry views where you can review labor hours. But we make it really easy within payroll or just when approving timesheets to build out custom reports for your team. So we can see for this pay period, we have it grouped by team member, earning type, job, and then cost code. So I can see the employee, their regular versus overtime. I can see their total weekly hours. Really just make it easy for if something's off, we can go in and fix it. But then from there, if we drill down farther, we can see the projects they were on and then the cost codes on those projects. But one of the best things about MITRE is, we're doing a lot of work on the back end, right? You've set up your pay rate groups, you've assigned them to the project. We do a lot of work just showing how those pay rate groups or how those pay rates get allocated. So again, if we click in on a specific timesheet, March 26, we can see the job, we can see the cost code that I was working on. Then on the back end, if we click into pay rate on a timesheet by timesheet basis, we'll show you exactly how MITRE is automating their pay. So we can see here, hey, this is a prevailing wage job, and we're actually paying the Adams County pay rate group. John's an electrician, so that is a $60 base rate. There's $25 in fringe associated with it, but we're actually offsetting all $25 through our employer fringe contributions. So we're only paying them $60 an hour. Now, this piece, if we wanted to take it a step further and say, hey, exactly how did you get the $25 in benefits that we're taking credit for here? We can click into this contributions tab and see, the vacation, the sick time, the dental, vision, health, any, 401k or ancillary fringe plans that you have set up. And, we'll show you the offset happening, how we're calculating that contribution, essentially just taking your company contribution to their benefits, breaking it down into an applied hourly rate, and automatically doing that fringe offset for y'all anytime somebody's working on a prevailing wage project. So this is a super powerful tool. There's nothing your team needs to do other than that pay rate group. Again, because we're the full HCM, those benefits live inside MITRE. We know your company contribution. We will automatically do this calculation for you as folks are clocking in and out to those prevailing wage projects. For you union folks, a little simpler, right? We're just going to show you the your union base rate with their fringes here, and you can click into contributions to see the fringe breakdown and where those are being allocated to. And then we have a union fringe report on the back end that you can download on a monthly basis and upload to your union portal or share with them.
Hey, John, can you exclude cost codes from prevailing wage within a job?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, you can exclude them from certified payrolls. So folks, like very, very common use case. We want to clock in on drive time, right? And I want to track their drive time to the project. They're not actually on the job. That should not be included in certified payroll or prevailing wage. So on a cost code by cost code basis, you can mark that, as well as on an employee basis. Another big use case is supervisors or project managers, or just folks in office who are salaried but want to allocate their salaried earnings to a project. We can exclude them from certified payroll at an employee level as well, since they're not actually on the project performing work.
Cool. And then can you show how you can modify hours for the week if you need to change someone's hours?
Yeah, absolutely. Time tracking in MITRE, I'd say, again, super flexible, and we would definitely want to drill into everyone's specific situation, because we have the mobile app with geolocation features, right? So if we come into timesheet settings, we can see where they clocked in and out. We can set a radius around the job site, and we'll notify you if they clocked in or out outside of the job's address. You can view it on a map. You can also do site-bound clock-in. So we will not even let them clock in until they're standing within the geofence that you have set up, as well as GPS breadcrumbs and tracking their mileage. So breadcrumbs, exactly how it sounds, right? We are dropping little dots on that map so you can see where they went throughout the day and also track their mileage. So super flexible from like a field perspective. If you just want them submitting timesheets after the fact, they can do that. If you wanted supervisor or foreman bulk creating for their team via grid entry view, they can do that. Can also have kiosks on site. We have some customers who have hundreds of employees showing up on the same project for weeks at a time. So they'll put a couple iPads on site for them to clock in using a 4 or 5 digit PIN, require clock in and out photos. So it is very flexible. It is not a one size fits all. And even, across the same organization, we'll see different methods used based on the projects or crews. That being said, very flexible reporting here with how you review and approve labor hours. We have this list view, and then we also have a pay period view, which I think is even easier. So similar to that payroll run, we can see employees, their hours across the week. Again, everything in MITRE has this pivot table function, which is just a incredibly easy to use but powerful tool, where you could say, hey, I actually want to see this at the job level first, and go ahead and flip this report on its head. Now we're looking at our jobs over here, and we can see their total, daily hours, total weekly hours. And then if I drop it down, I could see the employees, or if I care more about the cost codes that they're working on, I could see the project and the cost codes and the hours we're actually spending on the job. So very flexible from here. And if we wanted to click into like an individual employee's timesheet, we could come in here and make adjustments, and all of these fields can be configured based on what you need to see. Or we could click into the project as a whole's timesheet and just come in here and update hours as needed across our employees. So really easy review process. If we wanted to go through and just say, everybody on interstate highways hours look good after clicking in here and making adjustments, we could grab all of those hours and just approve them straight from here. Now, for folks who are looking for a little bit more level of detail, right? Maybe we want to drill into clock in and out times across employees' entire work week, or we are tracking equipment and we want to see what equipment was used or their notes on it. We have this list view here, which essentially allows you to pull up the relevant fields that your team needs to see. So if we want to see employee, job, cost code, hours, maybe we do care about the clock in and out time, If we wanted to see their full notes that they attach to the timesheet, maybe see if anybody said they were injured, or again, if we're doing equipment or anything like that, we can pull these fields up. We also have custom fields that you can create if we're tracking like units installed or materials that they're doing on the project. They can submit that on the timesheet. So essentially make it very easy for your team to build out these reports. As you're doing so, you can save these as either personal or shared templates so that you're always able to come back and review those reports straight from here. You do not have to build this out every time. And even from this view, the grouping function is great, because we could come in here and say, now let's go ahead and see this at the project level. And then I can drop it down and see each individual employee who is on that job. That Anurag here has 5 unapproved timesheets for 40 hours. And then I can click into just his week and see whatever detail I have broken out from my pivot table. So if all these looked good for Anurag, we could go ahead, grab them and approve them, or we could click in and make any necessary adjustments to the job, cost code, hours, equipment he was using, etc. In timesheets too, I'll say the policies for how they get done, super flexible depending on what we want to capture on the timesheet. So again, we're going to require folks to clock into a project, sub-project, cost code, classification if we're doing prevailing wage and they jump between a bunch of different classifications on the project. Do we need them clocking into different pieces of equipment, et cetera, so we can define what do they see, what's required when submitting a timesheet, or do they have the option to submit, or what are we just hiding that's not required? And then also, what does that approval process look like? So there is no limitation to how many steps you can have in that approval process and who's involved at each step. So, job supervisor, job superintendent, maybe we want to go to, somebody in the payroll team, just Caroline, Alexia, or Alan Wrench needs to give it a final approval before it's in payroll ready to go. Jumping a little bit ahead, because we only have a couple minutes here before Sarah and Sullivan yell at me to wrap up. I'd say, as you're reviewing the payroll, similar views to the timesheet where we can see the work week, make sure hours look good, and approve the payroll. Once we do that, MITRE is debiting your employer bank account. We are issuing the direct deposits. We are pulling out the proper amount for taxes and remitting them on the proper schedule. So again, handling your quarterly annual tax filings as well as W-2s. There's really nothing else that needs to be done after your team has reviewed the labor hours. If you need to make one-off adjustments to their benefit deductions or add a manual earning, very much a part of your in-house payroll process that your team is controlling here in the system. But once you do click approve, that's where MITRE will take over on the direct deposits, taxes piece. And then finally, last 2 things, and then I promise I'll turn it back to you, Sarah. Certified payroll report, right? If you've seen us at CFMA or other conferences, Sage Transform, you've seen us walking around in our dorky Ask Me About Certified Payroll shirts. We do it really, really well. We make it easy for folks to come in here after they've processed the payroll. We can select the job, the week, and the state we need the report for. From there, if it's a state with a specific report, like our California Fund Friends over in California, the DIR, some states will require these. We do all state level formats. If you need LCP Tracker, EMARS, there's a few other compliance agencies we can generate, or if we're just doing a standard WH347. Those are really all the steps you need to go through. If you want to add multiple projects and generate multiple certified payrolls at once, you certainly can. But then from there, your team is able to click create. MITRE will go ahead, generate that certified payroll report. I think I only shared this screen, but we can share this with you guys in the follow-up demo. It generates the WH347 PDF. If you're doing LCP Tracker, it's the CSV. Some state level reports are the XML file. All of them, MITRE will spit that out ready to go, so you can upload it directly to that website. And then finally, on the last piece I want to touch on, obviously very, very important to everyone on the call, how do we get those labor costs back into our ERP? So again, we're pulling down the work breakdown structure, and with that, obviously going to be your projects, cost goods departments, but your GL accounts. We'll do this mapping exercise with you to make sure all of our payroll line items are going back to the correct GL buckets. If we have specific ones for benefits, we'll do the mapping with you. And then from there, the big piece is we then come in here and across all of our payroll items, right? Earnings, taxes, benefits, workers' comp, et cetera. We come in and say, what dimensions is your team using? And we're connected to Intact. This might be a little different for 100 to 300 users. But what dimensions are you using? And then we'll pull those down. And we go through line item by line item and say earnings, taxes, benefits, workers' comp, et cetera. Do we need to break that out at the team member, job, cost code, cost type, department, location, class level? Essentially building out your job costed journal entries. You can actually sync these back and forth from Sage Intact and generate the entries before you push them over. So as a part of every implementation process, we do this exercise with you. And we actually run a couple dummy payrolls with you side by side with your existing solution to essentially show you guys water running through the pipes that, hey, this process really works. Payroll calculations are correct. And also the journal entries look accurate before we actually go live, process that first payroll, and sync those job costs back to Sage. Awesome.
Thank you, John. All right, if anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and drop those in the chat so we can finish answering them. One last question that we had was if we have team clock in and the foreman can clock in the entire team and see who's clocked in. John, do you want to go ahead and answer that one while I'm looking at the other questions here?
Yep. Yeah, I can absolutely do foreman clock in both from the like iPad or mobile app where they can have their designated crews and actually clock them all in, clock them all out.
Perfect. I'm looking through the other ones. Make sure we answered these. Let's see. Printing multiple certified pay reports at one time versus individually.
Yeah, so we don't actually print them for y'all, but if you wanted to go ahead and, in that tab, grab multiple projects and generate, 10 WH347s, it actually just downloads that PDF to the computer that you generated on. So then from there, you'd be able to generate print out all of those certified payrolls across the 10 to 15 projects that you just generated it for, which is a good distinction. Like MITRE is not remitting those back to or uploading them to LCP Tracker or sharing them with the GC or the owner, right? Once you generate it in MITRE, you will take that file and upload it to LCP Tracker or print it out and hand it to your GC. So we're really just generating the report with all the employees who were on the project, their classification, hours worked, gross amount earned, and deductions broken out in the proper format.
Great. Thank you. Oh, a few more just popped in. API that updates MITRE with new jobs. New jobs depending on where you're putting the new jobs. I guess is the answer to that question. If you're doing new jobs in Sage Intact, yes, it can pull those jobs from there. If you're entering those jobs in Procore, so it just kind of depends on where you're putting those new jobs there. If you want to elaborate on that, John.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And this is Intact, but it is similar for 300 on the work breakdown structure we're pulling down, right? So everything is API based, and you're able to set up a daily sync if you just wanted, projects overnight to update and pull down into MITRE. But also at any point, like if we are doing time tracking in MITRE and we needed Johnny out in the field to be able to clock into a project right away, you can also come in here and do a manual sync and specify like, hey, fetch any jobs that have been modified since today's date. There probably aren't in our demo environment. Oh, yeah, there is. So we would be able to sync this job, and now it's available in MITRE as soon as we sync it down to our system. So across your structure, everything can be set up on a daily sync, so we just stay up to date. But if you ever need to do a real-time push or pull between the systems, you can do that. And that's true across every integration. It's not just our ERPs. Like Sarah mentioned, if projects live in Procore, or we're using Service Titan and starting a job there, those will come over into MITRE as well.
Yes, it was clarified that was on 300, and the answer is yes for 300. Does it generate the certified payroll compliance sheet as well?
It does, yep.
Perfect. And then can we generate a certified payroll report for a specific cost code on the job and not the total job?
I believe so. We would want to understand the use case behind that, but you should be able to scope it down to generate it for just that cost code. I'm not sure why you would, so would love to connect sort of offline and understand why. But I believe the answer is yes after some work with our team.
Great. There's a few more questions on other things we integrated with, and a few other little questions. I think I got back to everyone individually, but let me get to our resourcing. Oh, if you can, I don't know how to get back to the deck, sorry. But thanks. Action team, I don't know how to, sorry, get back to the deck, but please feel free to reach out to the Action team with any questions. Your representatives at Action will be happy to share information with you on how to get in touch with us and get any of the resources that we shared today, whether it is integration information or anything else, out to the team. If there's any questions that you weren't able to ask, or you have more in-depth questions, feel free to reach out. We are obviously excited to share. And again, we're just here to try to make your payroll lives easier. I think what John and I have learned is that so many folks have had payroll pain for so long, they just don't even know. It's like a crook in your neck you've had for too long. So we're here to try to get that out and hopefully make things better. Oh, sorry, that is a very good question I do want to answer. How long does it take to go live on average? John, if you want to kind of walk through the go live.
Yeah, it depends on a couple of things. Probably headcount being the biggest driver. I'd say for smaller shops like sub 200 employees, we're usually looking at about an 8 to 9 week process, so right around the 2-month mark. Usually when we start to get into multiple hundreds of employees, we bucket about 12 weeks of implementation. Those are our typical timelines. Depends on how motivated the client is, right? Some folks have a deadline they're trying to hit, or trying to do a quarter transition. So we can speed that up or extend it out as needed. But good timelines to keep in mind. Smaller shops usually around 2 months, a little bit longer. Larger shops, multiple hundreds of employees, we're looking at about a quarter transition, 3 months timeline.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, we're at time. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Wonderful presentation, John and Sarah. Thank you so much. And to our guests, if you do have any questions in the future, as Sarah mentioned, please feel free to contact any of the presenters or I directly. And you're also welcome to reach out to your account managers. And your company's account manager will also be in touch soon, and they'll be happy to answer any other questions that you may have. As a reminder, we have provided the webinar survey. If you would please fill that out, as your feedback is really important to us. We would greatly appreciate it. And we want to thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.